Let's begin.
All right. Welcome everybody to the May 12th, 2025 meeting of the Barnstable Open Space Committee. I must let you know that the meeting of the Open Space Committee is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel. In accordance with Mass General laws, I must inquire whether anyone else is recording this meeting, and if so, to make their presence known. Hearing none, I'd like to do introductions. I'm Lev Malakoff, your chair, and I'm from Centerville.
Elisa Crowley, Barnstable Village.
Tracy Pratt, Katuitt.
Doug Payson, Barnstable Village.
Dave Goral, Centerville.
Liz Lewis, West Barnstable, or Barnstable.
Farley Lewis, Hyannisport.
Genozino, Administrative Assistant.
Here.
Thank you. Do I hear another
Sounds like
set of footsteps?
That's Kyle.
Kyle?
Hey, Kyle.
We just did introductions.
Kyle.
Kyle from Planning Department. Thank you, Kyle. I would entertain an approval of the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to
So
look?
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You opposed? Abstained? All right. Unanimous. Okay, so we have a few items we'd like to cover this evening, and then some updates on some of our old business. Starting off with the open space recreation plan. At our last meeting, we had just received some updates from Kyle. And it's great that Kyle's here to help us out, answer any questions or take any input that we have. So everybody, I hope, has had a chance to look at the action plan that has been color coded, and I think we can
Yeah.
pull that up on the screen. So there's a number of status report items on the various items. I think we'll just maybe go flip, we won't read every one, but we'll flip the pages, and if anybody has comments or questions, I would entertain your input.
Okay.
So starting with, I guess it's page 112, looking at the first goal.
Went through this real quick this afternoon on top of all my other careful study of it. And so it looks like open space has a total of 23 tasks, and 12 of which are number one priority. So I don't know whether you wanted to address number one priority first, or do you just do go through the whole thing?
That's probably a logical way to proceed. If you want to go through each number one priority in that order, and then jump back. So which
Maybe we want to switch around the priorities. I don't know. I mean,
That's true too.
yeah.
I want to ask Kyle, how will we interact with a consultant on those issues?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm hoping to get the consultant on board as soon as possible. I was hoping that they would be on board by now, but we're still working through the contract. Everything's on track, but it's just getting all the signatures and everything. So I was hoping that, I would have them here tonight, frankly, so that they could start, putting on the framework of how exactly we're gonna go about getting all this stuff compiled and everything. So I'm not totally sure, because we haven't actually talked to the consultant yet, because we're still getting everything signed. So TBD, I guess, is really my real answer for that. But a lot of it's going to be informed by, obviously, our public engagement. You guys can't really start assigning priorities until you've heard from the public what everybody thinks. So I would think that the first step will be setting up the public engagement process and getting that all straightened out, so that we can go from there. Because we'll have to do that before we can analyze what we've gotten from the public and start compiling that and getting it into a kind of a plan form, if that makes sense.
so we might be getting ahead of ourselves a little bit.
Okay.
If we're,
A little bit, yeah.
If we're trying to get into that much detail as
Right.
far as assigning the priority, because that could change once we hear from public feedback.
Will we have a public hearing? Is that what we're planning to do?
There will be, we'll have public meetings. It might not be like an official hearing, but there's gonna be public meetings, much like we've had for the local comprehensive plan. We'll go out to the public, not ask people to come to us necessarily. But we'll work through all that with our consultant team and figure that out. But they're scoped out for a lot of public engagement. They're supposed to go to 15 different boards and commissions too.
Well, there's a lot to do.
Yep. Probably me going to a lot of those boards and committees, which is all good, but.
I think we should still use what you've produced here as a guide for our discussion.
Yep.
And we as members of this board would have our input and what we think are priorities, and I'd be very curious to hear folks' discussion on that. And I actually had something I wrote up today regarding the very first action item and the very first objective. So let me introduce that, if I could ask Jenna to pull up the picture of the bottles, because I want to use this kind of as a this is kind of representative of what I think is going to be very important to open space. What you're seeing in this picture are dozens and dozens of bottles with suspicious liquid in them. Some people think it's gasoline. I did not open the bottle to see if it's gasoline. And in the background, maybe a little too far to see, is the black fence of the Centerville, Osterville, Marston's Mills Water Company's water tower. So this is off of Old Stage Road, and there is a walking path that passes from the neighborhood to Old Stage Road. And we've had citizen notice this and let the authorities know about this as a, something that should be evaluated and dealt with. So the next step was other people let other people know, and they did come out and try, the water department did send somebody out to retrieve most of the bottles. So when I went out and looked one more time, I took a few more steps and I saw maybe a dozen more bottles next to the fence. So I sent that to Craig Crocker at COMM, the superintendent, last week, and then I also made a phone call to say, hey, I sent an email because I didn't get a response. So hopefully that will be a little, the cleanup effort will be a little more investigated. But my point of this, showing this now, is that we have open space parcels of different sizes, different areas all throughout town. And in my own investigations, I found many campsites, many trash piles. And this is kind of my viewpoint, and I hope some of you share it, is that having early detection of problems is important. I don't know if we can ever have enough town staff to go out and monitor all the parcels that we have. But if we can have responsible public users in the area that would notice things and then can be the early eyes, early reporters on those. So I did write a little paragraph in a PDF that I sent you. So I tried to formulate my thought, which is to encourage responsible public use of open space parcels. With the exception of environmentally sensitive areas, maintaining passive recreation trail access would discourage damaging activities such as camping, dumping, motorcycle, ATV encroachment. There are currently numerous abandoned campsites around Barnstable's many publicly owned parcels. Responsible users are often the first to detect and report these and other damaging activities. So that's kind of my little manifesto, and I'd be happy to hear people's input and comments, and if you agree, disagree.
Yep. I think it's important to report it, but who do you report it to? Is it conservation, DPW, water department? Does it depend on where you are?
So there's an educational component for people to know who to report to. In this case, it was known it was water department land, so it was reported to the water department. So I would believe the most appropriate is to report it to the land manager of whatever parcel is, if it's conservation. But given that people may not even know that,
Yeah,
part of this maybe action item or objective, or depending on how we want to address this, could be an educational component, which is, you know, see something, say something, maybe at the trailheads. Maybe at trailheads, and, you know, and again, I'm getting ahead of myself, but at trailheads, we have kiosks that are in various stages of decay and disrepair. Those could have information to say if you see an issue, and some of them do. Some of them have phone numbers for
Yeah.
different
text
departments
us.
in town.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably your first line
okay.
of public outreach, is that people using the property, they come in at a trailhead, they see this is under the purview of whichever town agency, and there's a phone number, and then, you know, they discover somebody set up a camp, like I did 3 years ago at Hathaway's Pond, right by the water's edge. People were putting up their tents. So, you know, I called the police, because I wasn't sure who else was gonna do
Right.
anything.
Right.
But, you know, and they would know, you know, the next steps too. Because those are active people, and it wasn't just a dump site.
Right, right.
Well, I think this is extremely important, but I think there needs to be a central clearinghouse in town for these kinds. Take the Treasure Trail, for example. That short trail passes through multiple jurisdictions. I sit on this committee. I don't know which part of it is conservation, is land bank, is DPW. We need to have a central place where, and I couldn't concur more. This is one of the reasons I've been pushing that we have signs at the trailheads to alert people that there are trails there. I believe the more people we get in the woods, the more eyes we have on what's going on. And particularly when you see that volume of trash,
Oh, yeah.
this is really, you know, I walk the trails in Barnstable Village and pick up the trash every day, but it's a little bit, you know, I may have a pocket full by the time I get home. But this is over the top. I think there needs to be a number that people call and report an issue.
That would be the easiest.
That would work.
Yeah.
Somebody could handle a call, he would be responsible for contacting
Yeah.
The
somebody.
appropriate.
The appropriate person, yeah.
But
Like a
that would-
911 number,
that would
yeah.
simplify the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did they ever find out if that really was gasoline?
Yeah.
Apple
Yeah.
juice?
I haven't had the, hopefully it's apple juice.
Yeah.
I really hate apple juice. I'm gonna just throw my bottles out there. I haven't got a discussion back to
Was it
Oh,
just,
to
was
find
it
out.
one big load that was dumped there, or was it just, has it been accumulating over time?
No, it came all of a sudden.
Huh.
That's weird.
I don't
I
wanna
know.
put my colleague here under the bus, but he's the first guy to let me know about it. I mean, you just saw a pile.
I just saw it, yeah.
Yeah, it seemed like there were some low areas that were, maybe they thought they would be hidden. But they were pretty visible because there were so many of them. And it's a strange parcel because it's not, I can't imagine a truck backing up and unloading.
No,
Because it's got Old Stage Road and a sidewalk on one side, and that's not gonna be one end of the trail for a truck to unload. The other end is a neighborhood street, and they would have had to bring them in quite a distance. So I can't really, well, I can have my suspicion is that it came from one of the properties to the south, but I can't
Yeah.
put a finger on anything, not knowing if there's somebody that's in a business that has leftover fuel that decided that they would just take them out back, you know, and throw them next to the water tower, but I don't have that much forensic ability.
I was just reading through our, the update from staff comments and so forth, and Natural Resources said, one of our further projects is to create natural resources regulations. As you know, many of our open spaces are not designated as conservation lands and need regulations to allow as to enforce prohibited dirt bike ATV use, illegal camping, and illegal dumping. These regulations will also address endangered species protection in town, so.
That was surprising to me that wasn't already on the books.
Yeah,
Well, I assume that
so, I mean,
illegal dumping is already against the law, you don't need
Yeah.
a regulation.
I would say so. But I don't know if natural resources would play a lead role in this or not. I mean, is that somebody we could lean on, or?
I mean,
I don't know.
you could call them and
Yeah.
tell them you found a problem, and then they could then direct it to
Okay.
whatever the next step is,
Yeah.
but,
I know, I just, it is frustrating, I think, for all of us who go out there and see dumping and, ATV use and camping and so on, and not knowing really who to contact, so. Be nice
So-
to-
I guess, definitely that would be one of our
Yeah. it has-
bullet items on this subject.
Right.
Um, All right, I'm glad that we got that out in the open. Well, maybe we're not looking at priorities directly, but we can go through the pages back on the spreadsheet.
On the first page, at our last meeting, we had talked about the importance of in acquisition, first looking at properties in water resource protection areas. And I think that's.
Yeah.
Probably, I think we agreed that that was our probably largest priority at this point.
Okay, good point. Anybody have something else to add on page 112? I guess the page numbers are showing up? Yeah. We go to page 113. We've got a thing that we're working on, or we'll continue to work on this, reviewing status of land, determine need for, so I'm not sure how we're doing that. Unless it's only during opportunities to chime in on things, on item 1C. Yeah, so I think things come to us and we discuss them, and we generally are supportive of those things when they're known to us.
Yeah.
But so that would probably be per parcel as it comes up. I don't know that we are looking at this holistically at all of the town
Well,
land.
and I would ask Kyle, is the town in the process of modifying their policy on chapter 61A properties?
I've not been privy to those discussions, to be honest.
It is, so, town manager.
Thank you.
So the other thing that came to mind under, I guess there's a red one here.
Yeah,
It's
that's
a little hard to read. It says no policy will need to be developed, but in the works. So of course, the question I have is how in the works is it? And who is working on it?
Yeah.
Somebody made the comment on the spreadsheet.
I made the comment because of coming to these meetings and you guys having the discussion about
Okay.
it sitting in the legal department. I actually learned about the whole topic from you guys. So I don't have any more information than you guys have talked about in the last few meetings that you guys have talked about it at. I'm aware that it was to be worked on at some point, right? And you haven't heard of an update, and I haven't either. But I just put it on there because I had heard it was in the works. But to what level, I do not know.
Okay, yeah, I think we had last heard legal department is working on it, but I do not have an update. I did send a query 10 days ago or so with a few items, haven't heard back.
Who did you send that to, by the way?
Kathleen Connolly?
Yeah, so she's no longer with the town.
Oh,
So you're probably gonna wanna send, any inquiries, you should send them to Karen Dober.
okay, I will
She's
resend.
She's the head of
So for the next meeting, we may have some updates. Sure, that's no problem.
You might wanna send him to Jim Kupfer, the director, cause he's been compiling all the stuff that we're waiting on to hear back from the legal department. So if it comes from him, it might be more effective.
So CC him or direct it to him?
Up to you. I'd probably direct it to him and say, these are the things that we've been waiting to hear back, can you give him
And
a poke?
CC Karen Nover?
I'd probably just send it to Jim and say, can you poke, but it's up to you.
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to make it work.
Yeah, I hear you, which I can't promise, to be honest, because I'm not in the legal department.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, good to know.
Right, did you
Um,
get the?
So in a related subject, we discussed the Article 97 viewer that the state has produced. We're talking about, maybe, I don't know if it fits right into this, but it's a great tool that I think we could provide and promote to the public to better understand the status of land in our town. It has a lot of layers in there that people can understand different environmental concerns as well as the status of parcels. So it's a parcel level viewer with other layers in it. So I can send you a link if you haven't already taken a look at it. I think it's really a useful tool. Okay, anything else on page 113?
Well, it does, 1.2C is talking about, chapter 61 and 61A.
Yeah.
And I know we're not supposed to be looking at it, but I just wondered if that was something that we might want to add to our list of opportunities or.
So what would you suggest?
Well, I know we've gotten involved in some of the issues involved with 61A, and I don't, whether that should be part of our overall charge, to be able to look at these properties and, make it say, this should really be brought to the attention of the town.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, that's one of the tools of protecting open space.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, just a thought, but.
I think that's gonna become more and more of an issue where a lot of the agriculture becomes less and less profitable. That properties that have been in families for generations, the children no longer wanna farm cranberries, for example, and that there's gonna be a lot of opportunities in that regard.
So it sounds like this is a good example of a goal that we're gonna wanna carry forward from the last plan to this one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, yes.
There's not much left.
Mm.
There's not a lot of agricultural land left.
Do we have a map of all our existing?
Yeah, with cranberry bogs, this is a shocking amount left if you.
Yeah, and some people are
West Barnstable,
resurrecting.
yeah.
Yeah, returning them.
But other than cranberry bogs.
Do we have a map of the 61A and chapter 61 parcels? So we,
There were woodlots also, back of your house, there were large woodlots.
like a list,
right?
Yeah,
Right?
I know, sometimes
The
there's
town
stuff
would have
going
it.
on
Yeah.
back there that I
Somehow.
don't know what's bad.
I would think they would. I would think you'd have, we have so
Those were
many
king's
different
grants.
layers on those maps.
I'm not
And
sure,
then from
I mean,
Route
it's just
6, they
educational.
go all the way
what-
across
what
the
would we
islands and the
do
harbor
with
and
that
across the
information
Indian
once we know where the parcels, but.
Okay,
I guess it
I
would
guess-
give us a chance if the change of use comes along, that's when it becomes a trigger.
Right.
And the trigger doesn't always work. That's was the problem, I think, with the Centerville cranberry bog, is that something got skipped.
Right,
Um,
so we would just have to bring it to the
whole
attention of the
property,
town, not
too.
just ignore it, right?
mhm. Yeah, so I think having that information available somehow in a practical sense. But I'm not sure how would we be informed if, you know, if the use is changing, and they don't come before us.
Right, I mean, because they don't really come before us.
And they don't, yeah, but they might come before
Who do they come before?
conservation.
Yeah,
So that's why policy needs to be
yeah,
developed, right?
exactly.
Okay,
Well, so
so,
that there's more eyes maybe, you know, on this.
so we want to keep this and strengthen it.
Yeah,
Okay, great. Anything else on 113? 114? So there is a red highlight on the, no revisions to the ordinance, but I guess the question is, does it need to be revised? Because the action item was to evaluate the success. So, yeah, 1.3 point B, open space residential development. So it's not really clear to me what the action item was trying to accomplish. Develop recommendations to revise the ordinance, but what would the guidance be to revise it? In what way?
Which, if I can interject, I would say that's what we want to think about when we're developing future action items. We don't want it to be a gray area like this, where we're, and then in 7 years, like, what exactly did we mean by that? And was it really accomplished or not? So as much as we can to avoid those kind of.
So at the very least, if I was editing the document 4 or 5 years ago, I'd take out after the comma. And, or it could be develop recommendations if warranted, or something like that.
Right.
There's no need to change ordinances if they're working. But we would like to know if it's working, I guess, was the point.
I can look in to see how many were permitted like that since 2018.
But how do you know if it's a success or not? I mean, what's considered?
One measure would be how many times has it been utilized? How many people are actually doing cluster open space developments?
I mean,
Okay.
the metric could be the amount of acres that have now been put into the open space part of the cluster development. How many times and then how many acres.
Okay.
I don't know how deep we'd want to get into it, because it can be contiguous. Maybe one.
Also, if we knew how many have been, I don't even know if any have been done since 2018. I have to look into this. But if you knew of some examples, then you could go out and take a look at the development and be like, does this meet the mark of what we were thinking about when we established this open space development? Does it have enough actual open space to make it, is this nicer than it would be if it was developed without the open space developed? You know what I mean? So
So that's the goal.
it's ultimately a subjective thing if it was
Is
successful.
there
or
some
not.
kind of benefit to the developer to increase units by?
Yeah, I think that is essentially, I'm not an expert on this, but essentially I think you trade off a little bit of density for open space.
Okay, so
Yeah,
along
that's-
those
that's
lines, well,
big.
the developer is benefiting by selling more units. The open space that's being preserved, do they have public access beyond the owners of the development? And I don't
that
think so.
depends.
yeah.
And it depends, but maybe that would be my point, is can this program be set up to include that in some fashion, so that you might have a large parcel here and a large parcel there, the contiguous with this development in the middle. And I can give you some examples, where it would be very advantageous to have a corridor, a greenway between the two. That then responsible public users could
Right.
travel between the two sites without breaking any rules.
I know in New Seabury, we ran into that with some, parcels that Brenda had there. And New Seabury was actually being very active in buying parcels so that they could kind of stay together, but they put a green, space too. But it was fenced off. And, you know, there was some debate, I think, whether it should be constructed in a way to allow wildlife to go back and forth.
Yeah.
And I forget, you know, if anything ever came of that, but they didn't really make it accessible. You know, maybe in some places, but dependent, you know, if there was a pond
That's
or
in
something, they
Mashpee.
didn't want, you know, somebody to probably go into the pond.
New Seabury.
Yeah.
So, but we'll be better in Barnstable.
Yes, of course, but I remember
catchphrase.
that being,
Good one.
you know, somebody else that was, you know, paying attention to stuff like that.
I believe on cluster development that you don't end up with more units. It's, you still preserve, if, for example, the zoning is 40,000 square feet, there's a unit for the 40,000 square feet, but the house may only be on 20,000 square feet, so another 20,000 is held out as part of the open space.
Yeah, but I think the incentive to do that is to allow them to create more units than the one per 40,000.
I don't believe so. Kyle?
Again, I'm not an expert, so I'd have to look into
I don't-
it. I think what you're saying,
I was involved with cluster development. Yeah. And that was the way it worked.
So why
was
would a
the
developer choose
so you
that
don't,
path?
so then you don't have to,
Permitting, fast tracking the permitting by doing that.
your buildable lot could then be smaller because you have some of
Yeah.
it go to open space. So you have small, it's not necessarily more units, but it would be smaller technically lots, I think, is
Correct.
what you're saying, so that makes sense.
I don't know, it just seems like the landowner's value would decrease because now I can't cut down all my trees and make a
Well,
big
but there's a
yard.
buffer between that home and development, and usually the way they do it, there are tracts of land between the houses, so that, so those 20,000 square foot lots aren't adjacent, they're spaced, so that there's
Yeah, you're not right.
land, and it's also, one of the advantages of that is that if you have people that clear cut everything and then put lawn in the whole thing and cut down all the trees, which is very fashionable today, that prevents that, because there's a vegetated area between the houses, which allows wildlife to pass through.
Well, it sounds good what you're saying, but maybe
Yeah,
Kyle
you can
will be
check
able
on
to
that, Kyle, that.
dig into a little.
Sounds like we got the expert right here. I
That's
don't
involved.
There's actually a development in Barnstable Village that was set up like this on top of, at the end of Pine Lane.
Yeah, I know, I was thinking about that too.
But it never was developed, so, but there's
It's
supposedly room
complicated.
up there for like a dozen houses.
Mhm.
And they're not big lots at all. So, and they're different size lots up there, but if you wanna go online, you can probably look it up and see what.
All right,
But they also have then all of that, you know, land between, the water department land between Old Jail and Hyannis Road is like behind them. So I don't know if that counted as their open space.
is this the Barrel Hill?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
With the wooden platforms? that are
yes,
Getting a
yes.
little
They've
rickety?
taken those down.
Okay, they
Yeah.
were
They were
getting,
dangerous.
they were getting to that point.
They had great views.
They had beautiful views, that was the whole point.
That would be very interesting for open space, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, what's the status
I don't know
of
why it was
or
never
Yeah.
developed, but it obviously was
Somebody
not.
ran into money
It's a
problems.
great part of the contiguous
Oh, yeah.
watershed and
Yeah,
Oh, it'd be,
the view.
How big a parcel is it?
Well,
It's a set of, they did subdivide,
yeah, they
but
subdivided
never
it,
developed.
but it would be beautiful to preserve that and
Mm.
put up a real, like, observation tower or
Yeah.
something. Cause it's gorgeous up there, you've
Yeah.
been up there.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous up there.
it would be nice. Or, you know, people could picnic and.
Yeah,
And it's Barrel Hill because
it is Barrel.
they used to watch the ships come in
Oh,
and they'd say it's time to unload the barrels. And what would they do, raise a barrel up?
They would
on
raise
the-
a barrel.
up on
And
the,
everyone knows
on a
now it's time
pole.
to go unload the barrel.
Interesting.
And you could even see it from Hyannis, you could see the barrel, because there were no trees, or few trees.
That's great.
Okay, anything on 114 else that I'm missing?
Let's see.
Going to 115?
Well,
Or
yeah, let's
We're back at
provide public information to landowners.
61 A and B.
Oh, on page 115.
And it, so, no educational program in place.
Well, is this something like a realtor would know if you're, or is this more for tax purposes, or, you know, if somebody's purchasing the property, or if somebody wants to,
So,
yeah,
Yeah, because it's
sell.
gonna be overkill to let every single landowner know about the program, but
I mean,
unless it's when a property comes up for sale and then you start to reach out to them.
well, I wonder also with the other alternative land protection strategies, Kyle, if that would include transferable development rights?
Potentially.
At where you reserve the land in a rural area and allow more intense development in an urbanized area. And I believe that Cape Cod 5 did that with their new headquarters, that they purchased land and put it into conservation to build that headquarters.
oh, okay, I didn't know that. Where did they purchase the land, in Barnstable?
Yeah, somewhere
okay.
and that's not used very often in this town, is it? The transferable development rights, and that's probably one of the best things you could do, that because the development should be where there's sewer and where there's some people can walk to a store or you know.
Right.
Unlike in a sand pit, you know?
yeah. But I know, you know, people can also, you know, have some tax benefits too, and I mean, you know,
CRs.
yeah, the compact of, you know, Cape Cod Conservation Trust, they would periodically do, you know, meetings to, and reach out to
Are they
landowners.
still doing that?
I don't know, I mean, it, you know, it's, I think it depends on the state and what the fund, you know.
I know, it just
The
takes about
situation.
1 million years to get a CR.
Well, I think people, well, it wasn't just the CR, they get into a, you know, you get
Yeah.
into a queue and, so, I mean, he would, you know, educate landowners about if they want to donate or preserve land, they could do, you know, so with a tax benefit. You know, you had to meet certain criteria.
So is there, I guess the red says, you know, no educational program in place. I guess it's no formal program, but it sounds like they are doing that when they see opportunities.
Yeah, it's more dependent on the,
So it could be, you know, ongoing efforts by the compact and maybe
And land trust.
BLT also.
yeah, BLT, they,
Doing some of
they've
this
done
outreach.
stuff like that.
Yeah, that's good to note.
I think on 1.5 B, best management practices for managing invasive species, I believe we're failing in this town at doing that. And that's something that should be prioritized. In other communities, there's a big focus on.
It's almost impossible
Nice.
to control some of those invasive species, don't you think?
No, because one of the issues is these are pyrophilic environments that they're not doing any controlled burning, and as a result, that most of the open meadows, we're losing those,
Right.
we're
Well-
losing sandplain grasslands,
Yeah.
coastal heathlands, that these are critically endangered environments that are globally rare.
Mhm.
They're found here on the islands and Long Island, and that's it.
Yep.
And we're not, in the base there, Joe, I was watching, I was
Yeah, the
off base
base
today and I
Kind of
could
went
see.
overboard though.
They were doing it again today,
Were
cause
they
I could
really?
see it, I was
Back for
on,
more.
God.
no, I was on West
Freezing.
Island in
Yeah.
Fairhaven and I
Yeah,
could
there's a
see
little bit of
them
breeze,
doing
wasn't there
the,
today?
yeah.
Doing a
Must
burn.
get to
Yeah.
check
Yeah.
your humidity.
But that's probably, I really, I'm very strongly believe that we're failing on managing invasive species.
I agree. And I mean, I know just some work that, you know, back in the day of, you know, land trusts that we did, controlled burns, in Mashpee. And the results were amazing, you know, a lot of different, species came back, plants, birds, you know, animals, I guess.
Ground nesting birds.
Yeah, so,
Um,
I mean, it
New
works.
England cottontails, they're doing all the work in the
Yeah,
Crane
a lot of
Wildlife
blueberry
Management
came
Area.
back, you know, so,
So once again,
Some
though,
people
who does
don't
that?
believe
Who
in it, but-
manages
Right.
the invasive species?
So
Who
I would
does
just
this?
note, I heard back from conservation on this one, actually. They have done several, it says several controlled birds have been completed in Crocker's Neck and West Barnstable conservation areas. So he
Okay.
did say that they have been doing some controlled birds, and I know that they've done it in Crocker's Neck, I've seen it. I've just, in talking to Ed, I know that there's a problem in finding people to do it too, because there's not that many people who are qualified to do burns. It's not like you can just go out and go with a box of matches, you know?
Yeah.
no.
So there's that too, but you know, point taken, you know, maybe we wanna make sure we do more of that, but we have, there has been, you know, as reported by the conservation, there has been some done.
And over in the West Barnstable Conservation Area, the watershed, the water company has been doing some mowing in there as an alternative to control burns. And the other thing would be vegetation management with livestock, with goats or sheep.
Goats are great.
Yeah, and the,
Yeah,
you know, and I think that's far more preferable than herbicides,
I
which
know,
is,
well, you know.
I don't believe
every-
there should be any
Yeah, remember
herbicides.
when they were wanting to do herbicides like for power lines, I think was it N-Star? And
Oh, yeah,
people were,
yeah.
very upset.
Mhm.
'Cause it's just-
It's called Agent Orange.
Yeah,
Right, yeah. So along with all that is the strategies for fire prevention,
Yeah.
which is, I think,
Which is, and control burns are,
Burns do
you
that.
prevent the fuel from building up that then could be an, when I was a child, I remember coming to the Cape and there were fires that burned for 3.5 weeks.
Mm.
That's when they cut all the fire roads
Yeah.
in.
Well, yeah, and then there was, this was many years ago, but Sandwich to Barnstable Harbor burned.
Yeah.
When was that?
It was many, many years ago, but it happened,
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
yeah.
yeah, wasn't that where, like, all the sheep got, never mind, I don't wanna-
Probably Google it, it'll come up.
All right.
Okay, want to keep on track here. Let's look at anything on 116.
16.
Okay. Just working on Tentuit Preserve. Hopefully. Moving that forward. Anything on 117?
We haven't been able to see the,
Oh, I'm sorry.
no, the screen, it's not popping up.
Uh-oh.
I should have brought my, yeah, I had it.
You didn't bring your homework?
I've read it, but I had it, I left it at home. It's on
The
my,
dog
it's
didn't
on my
eat
desk.
it.
No, it's on my desk.
Okay.
Here it is.
15C that promote coordinated management of protected open space where multiple town departments are involved. That could fall into the reporting
Mhm.
on issues,
Point of contact,
point of contact for,
the lands are, whoever that is. Well, it's assigned to asset management team, so maybe we have a point of contact.
I know, my brain is starting to come to life, and I was thinking that Gracie was maybe gonna be the person to get in touch with if you had issues.
I think I heard that, yeah.
Yeah.
As a possible
Yeah,
starting point for people who didn't have,
okay.
because it's come up in other topics as well.
Okay.
I don't wanna go too much longer because there's a few other
Yeah.
items, and it'd be good to keep the discussion going on our next meeting too, obviously. So let's go through this on the next page. And that might be, I don't know, are we almost halfway through? Of the, at least not of the whole thing, but we're halfway through of our, 'cause then you get into recreation.
just quickly, 15F, is the town working with the county at the county farm on the self-sustaining improvements such as a coastal mitigation nursery? Is the town gonna work with the county on that?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm not aware of anything about that.
I know that the county is planning to do something
A
there.
coastal nursery
At the county farm.
the county farm. Yeah, I would guess that that's a county program that the town isn't involved in that.
So is something we would leave in our document, or I guess you could leave it in and then do what you can.
Sounds very similar to a goal that's in the current draft of the local comprehensive plan, actually.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it's consistent. Okay, 117. Continue to provide support. Ongoing. Then we have 15I, which is no longer relevant. So maybe we can shorten our document. Look at that.
Big slash.
Great. Town is still working with the commission on sea level rise. Not sure what we're doing in open space with sea level rise. Obviously, our beaches we care about,
Marshes.
marshes and estuaries.
Wetlands, yep.
Yeah,
So, okay.
culverts.
Makes sense. All right, so we've gotten through the first goal, and then we'll do the second goal next time. The third goal is recreation, which we can jump into. We did have one other document that was given to us last time, which just want folks, maybe we can just go through this. This is probably not too much. And this is the recreation section, but there was quite a bit of detailed responses to the action items.
And there's also conservation and natural resources.
Yeah, and we did talk about the regulations on the last page. So, I guess, not going through every item in here, but I am curious, 3.3.H is looking at the Hyannis Golf Course master plan. One thing I think would be advantageous for open space, besides the recreation component, is to create a connection convenient between Hathaway's Ponds Trail Network and the parcel to the west of the golf course, which I think is known as McManus property. There's about 18 acres of municipal land and about 4 acres of state land contiguous, kind of between Route 132 and Route 6. And it's a triangle with the golf course. So that is not a very welcoming. How many of you have walked that parcel? Almost nobody.
Does Barnstable Land Trust have a property in there too?
Not that I'm aware of. They do have a small parcel in Hathaway's Pond area
Okay,
that's just kind of sitting in the middle of the woods. Maybe even 2 of them. But this fairly substantial area, I
Yeah.
think will become more noticed when or if the Cape Cod Rail Trail ever gets to that point where they need to build a bridge over Route 132. But regardless, having, again, a green connection between Hathaway's Pond area and this parcel, I think would again help responsible public users see what's out there. And I can tell you what's out there. There are huge campsite debris from, habitation. It's old and expired, but it was just amazing how much stuff was out there. And I think now the motorcycles are starting to explore that area, so they're tearing it up.
This is why I don't go in there.
I don't blame you.
In the original open space plan, the original local comprehensive plan, I remember a real effort to keep that undeveloped, that when you got off Route 6, you would see an undeveloped parcel, that was a focus.
Yeah.
And it would be difficult, it would have to be a loop trail to cross Route, until the bridge for the bike path is built to cross Route 132. It would be extremely difficult to get, you couldn't connect across to the sidewalk across well, you could up at the traffic light.
Yeah.
Where you can loop around, you could there.
Definitely. So, any case, right now it's more difficult. So the only people that are really going there are people that are doing things that are not great.
Is the town planning to decommission the golf course at Hyannis Golf Course anytime in the near future, do you know?
Yeah, not that I've heard of.
why would they do that?
I had heard rumblings
Yeah,
that.
Doug, it sounds like you're more in the know than I am.
I know, I mean.
It's a good, I go cross-country
come to
skiing,
the
I go cross-country skiing there, so
Oh, okay.
I want them
didn't
to
know you
keep the
could
golf
go.
course.
Yeah,
Oh
you
yeah,
used to
I've gone with
yeah.
Lev,
Have
yeah.
you, I mean, you
Yep.
can still do that?
I've gone with Lev, oh yeah,
Oh, I didn't know
this
that.
year.
It's a good
Skiing
spot.
spot.
Yeah.
I was there years ago, I went there, but haven't been there recently for
Yeah.
skiing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and Old Barnstable Fairgrounds also.
yeah, that
Yeah,
would be
that's
nice.
It's very nice.
Yeah.
By use.
Yeah,
Because Hyannisport won't let you do it
I know.
anymore.
I guess the only other thing that popped up in looking through here was the 401C item, master planning at Hathaway Pond. So my question maybe the planning department is, how is that ongoing master plan going? Since I don't really know or have seen what's going on there. I do know the 401C mentions upgrade and maintaining the trail system. For the walking trail around the pond, it's kind of an ankle breaker because it's never been maintained. So there's tree roots and erosion along the water's edge trail. I could see, some amenities like a bench once in a while. Just the last time I took my dad out there, there's no place to sit down after, because that's a really great scenic spot for walkers and people that get on in years could really enjoy things like that, those amenities.
The trail section that was closed has been reopened.
Which one are we talking about?
On the northern end of the pond, where the steep section on the trail was built around it,
Oh,
people
yeah.
have continued to go on the part that was closed.
I was part of the crew that closed it.
Yeah.
And then the walkers created a new route.
Mm.
Because, the bicycle riders didn't want to go up a steep eroded, washed out hill. And so they helped create the switchbacks, which are a more gentle climb around that area. We even had an arborist get up and drop a pine tree. It's very unusual. I have permission from conservation. Said you could drop this tree right on the trail, and then the walkers circumvented the crown of the tree because they'd always gone that way.
Yeah.
And and I was speaking from New England mountain bike times when I was helping with the project. We requested signage closed for revegetation, and we're not able to ever receive that. So I think the walkers didn't realize, they thought the tree just fell, right? They didn't realize it was closed for a reason. So they just, made their trail where they've always had one.
I think this is a big problem with the lack of management of our conservation areas. Is that part of management of these properties is taking eroded trails and closing them and building
Sustainable.
more sustainable trails around them.
So I would say that's a good action item. Evaluate the trail network and seek improvements that are sustainable. That's definitely a good idea. So that's kind of, there's a couple of highlights from that. If there's anything else somebody has picked out, we can always revisit again at the next meeting.
Hopefully we'll have a consultant on board by then. We should. we absolutely should. So.
Yeah.
I mean, the
that'd be
town
good.
is actively interviewing at this point.
We have a preferred vendor, we're just signing the contract with
Oh,
them. It's
okay.
just going through the
Okay.
rigmarole of contract signing.
Okay, so let's, if we can, let's just briefly touch on the Cummaquid Inn.
Yeah.
I don't have a presentation. I did have a screen cap of the parcel area. And just for information, I guess, this is now coming onto our radar. Ann Kennedy sent me a message, at the last meeting, that this would, she believes, be of interest to us, which
Yeah.
sounds like it is.
Yeah,
So it's a,
This is Anthony's coming.
Yeah.
yeah, so it's a interesting parcel because it's divided into two towns.
yeah,
That's not
That's
the
not the whole
parcel.
picture. I guess I didn't do a good aerial.
That's not the parcel because the 56 is the Larson's property.
Maybe my picture got cut off. Can you pull up the state's property map
This
viewer?
one?
Yeah, and then let's zoom in on the parcel. So
Do you wanna control the mouse?
share.
yeah.
I will do my very best. So it's at the town line of Yarmouth. Oops,
Oops.
don't get seasick.
Great.
So we're zooming in on it right here.
Yeah. it's
So
that.
Barnstable and Yarmouth.
Yeah,
Where's my mouse? Okay. Okay, so if we click on this, for example, I click. This, is it not clicking?
Well, that's at 0 and 2, isn't it?
Yeah,
Well,
it's those two.
Property.
0 and 2.
This system, usually when you click on the parcel, it tells you the acreage. There's also, maybe I can show you
Large.
the aerial.
6 or 7 acres.
Yeah,
There's
have they done any cleanup at all there?
Well, here, okay, so here you can see the access drive is here,
Yeah,
and there's a large parking area down here and another parking area here.
yeah,
And then a number of buildings that I guess were houses of some kind. I'm not sure if they were, how it worked in their operation. This was the restaurant, and, a large dining room and all that associated. It's on a high point, looking out over the pond to the north.
And look how much shoreline it has on Hallett's Mill Pond. It's enormous.
mm,
So, I guess it's being considered for acquisition. And I'm not sure where and how in the process it is. But, you know, certainly interested to hear from all of us what your thoughts on that process.
So both Barnstable and Yarmouth are considering it, or
I
just
think it's a joint
us?
process.
It is a joint
Just since it's
process?
got,
Well, what's the status of the owners? I mean, are they looking to donate it or?
I don't know, I don't have a lot of details.
I mean, that would be a beautiful piece of property.
Oh, God. But a
It's open
developer, I
space.
would think, would love that
Yeah.
property.
I could chime in, just because I actually toured the site with town and Yarmouth officials too, so it's both Barnstable and Yarmouth.
Great,
I've looked at it, it would be through Community Preservation Act funding through open space, so, both towns have looked at it for just rudimentary, looking at it, and I think they were supposed to get an appraisal was the last step, and I don't know if the appraisal actually has been done yet. But that was the last step, was both towns took a tour, saw what the conditions were. The owner was gonna get an appraisal to see what the property is worth, so they can start to have the discussion with the CPAs about whether they'd be interested in acquiring it at that price.
okay.
Interesting.
So it's a developed parcel, so as far as open space, whether you would undevelop,
Well, I think a
whether you
lot
would
of
make
it,
a park,
No, I mean,
I think
what's
a lot has
left
to
of
be
it?
torn down.
There's a lot of cleanup to do. There's a lot of asphalt on the site still, so I don't think you'd actually be able to remove all of it. That'd be a lot. So maybe you'd just be able to remove some portions of it. And there are a lot of houses that are really in disrepair, falling into the earth.
Oh, okay.
Everything is a mess.
And there's a lot of them. There's like 5 of those.
Yeah.
So, and then there's like a garage that's got all sorts of graffiti on it, so explicit graffiti and stuff. So, there's a lot to clean up on it, but definitely big potential. It's a huge site. I've grew up on Cape Cod. I've never been there. It's huge.
Yeah, I know.
so have you heard what it would possibly turn into with the Yarmouth folks, would they have?
I don't think the conversations have got to that point yet.
Okay.
The assessed value was 2.4.
2.4
Yeah, for March 25th was.
Is
the
that
big
for the
piece.
whole parcel, for the whole parcel.
Yeah,
Is that,
for the whole
or is that Barnstable only and?
That's a good question.
I'll bet it's parcel 0, which is.
Assessed is going to be a lot different than the appraised price.
Right. And at the pond site, there is one of the original town markers, that went back
Yeah.
from the 1600s, it's still there.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I
So it
mean,
could be a historical park.
yeah, it could be a
historical
park.
It points to the stone out in the middle of Cape Cod Bay, that all the town lines go
Go
to
to.
that stone.
Meridian.
Yeah, I live on Meridian Way.
And you still have those
The
meridians
Meridian stones
there.
are there.
Also, if you want to see some invasive species, they have a really thick bamboo forest there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's
That isn't
Yeah, they-
technically invasive, it's
Well,
aggressive.
if it's not
That's the
technically.
original,
Yeah, it's
Yes.
along 6A.
that's from 1870, that's the original bamboo on Cape Cod.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Bring in some panda.
yeah, isn't it?
It's
something?
definitely taken over the area, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I'd really have to.
I didn't realize there's a little pond in the front there
That's
that you
the
cannot
legacy.
see.
Yeah,
Legacy
Invasive.
vegetation.
Yeah, I did pull up the numbers, it's 5.3 acres in Barnstable and 4.99 acres in
Oh,
Yarmouth.
so it's more than I
Yeah.
thought, it's almost 10 acres.
yeah.
Oh, it is 10 acres.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got an interesting shape. So,
I mean, that undevelopment happens, a lot of conservation trusts have done undevelopment.
Mhm.
And, maybe it becomes a park,
Yeah.
put some trails in there and,
I-
or whatever.
I'm tending to think if you're gonna be using CPC money, there'll be a little bit of reaching in all directions. I mean, the housing, historic, and open space, so, or recreation. So, how that gets divvied up will be an interesting issue.
Oh, you think that some of it will be used for
Well,
recreation,
it could,
some for
you know.
open space?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I mean, I don't know if they could dedicate it to entirely to open space. That would be.
Would any of the butters have any interest in buying any of them land?
We might just have this as one of our old business topics as it moves along and, try to learn a little bit more as we go. So Spring Walking Weekend is coming Friday, and we have the brochures all beautifully produced and
Yes.
distributed
At all the
to.
libraries?
Yeah.
Since that seems to be.
Did you ask them to put it on the sign at
I
the,
didn't, I totally.
At the where?
at the Barnstable Fire Station?
I don't think it's too late. I
Oh,
don't know.
probably
too late.
not, no,
Ask
it's
them,
not too
that they
late.
love doing that.
I know, all right, okay.
What would it say? Just walking weekend?
Yes, that's what
Yeah.
it said last
Well, they
year.
did that
Oh.
last year and they did the,
Okay.
I told-
It's like, hooray, it's walking weekend, yay.
yeah,
Can I
get
have
out
some
and
more
walk.
of these? Where do you have them?
The
I
brochure?
can print you some, I don't have them ready now.
I'll come in and get them.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, that's
How many do you want?
Yep.
20.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll put them different places.
Um,
Did you put one at the Sturgis Library, did you say?
I put a couple in.
You did?
Okay. All right, looking at some of our old business, we don't have anything on Comaquid Woods tonight, conservation restrictions. I did send a request to legal, but now I'll send it to a different person in legal. So I hope to get an update on those items. And let's see, pathways update. I did ask, well, I will ask again about the Flint Rock Road section. Find out what the status of that request for quotes for the title search. I'll find out hopefully for our next meeting.
Mr. Chair, on Hathaway's real quick.
Yes.
Just wanted to note the town planted 18 trees at the dog park at Hathaway's Pond.
Oh, excellent.
Through the Greening Hyannis program.
Some shade there would be welcome.
I would like them to plant evergreens between the road and that ugly dog park.
Okay,
Stop it.
well, come in.
Wow.
They-
The dog park?
To go in and cut down 2 acres of forest and put a dog park in a place where people are then likely to walk down to Hathaway's Pond with their dog, and there's already a problem with dog waste, was ill-advised. I think it should have been under a power line somewhere,
Oh, God, no.
where it was already cut down, the trees were already cut down.
Not
Well, we got 18 trees back.
Good,
Stuck.
good. I walked there
I just.
4 days ago, so the.
Regarding the trailhead signs, I did reach out to Alice in Planning Department, who said they are looking to start the program on town parcels initially, to simplify it, and hope to be concluding a survey inventory by June 1st, if not sooner. If we have any additional proposed locations for signs, we should send them to Alice, or you can send them to me and I'll send them to her. I think the list was comprehensive as much as I could make it when we first asked for that. She did have a comment that they've gotten complaints about sign pollution. I don't know if you've heard. No,
First, I
okay.
saw that, that's the first I heard of that.
Okay, I kind of suspect why that would have happened, but not related to this particular topic. Anything on Centuit Preserve you'd like to share, Tracy?
Just, it's been busy down there, low fish, the fish ladder.
Oh,
Good.
I mean, a massive run, just, the river was backed up 200 or 300 yards, just black with fish.
Wow, that's fantastic.
It is, not, you can spend a lot of time waiting for them to actually jump at a level of the pond, but
Yeah.
they're certainly there in number.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah, that's fantastic news.
Good.
So it should be a good year for that. But I mentioned that little thing on the bog flood, I don't know, but that's something I'm gonna get into tonight, but.
Yeah, maybe we should take a little, next meeting, do a paragraph on some suggestions that maybe could go into our
That
plan.
is an issue, how to coordinate the three parties, the two towns and the state. It's just, I'm the only one that's really there on a regular basis, I think. And,
A responsible public user.
yeah.
We appreciate that. Okay, Farley, do you have anything on CPC?
CPC.
Open space
Yeah,
applications?
the last meeting was April 28th, and, excuse me, a letter of intent was received by BLT requesting $600,000 to support the acquisition and preservation of 13 acres of high priority ecologically significant pondfront property on Mill Pond. The total purchase price is $1,200,000. They have a Mass Conservation Partnership grant for $425 and will be applied in June of 2025.
Excuse me, Farley, which mill pond?
It's the one that's right on
Marston's Mills?
yeah,
or
Marston's
West
Mills on
Barnstable?
Falmouth Road, Marston's Mills, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Or Yarmouth Port, there's another one.
Okay, BLT will own the property, conservation CR will be granted to the town of Barnstable. Right now it's under agreement by BLT Walking Trails to connect with town-owned property to the north, and it was moved to application. And,
That's nice.
yeah,
Could we have a map of that at the next meeting? Is that possible to?
sure.
I think I can show you.
Yeah, I'm sure that BLT has probably got it.
Well, this is kind of
Nelson's Mills.
going to the mills.
Capital Mills, where 149 comes in.
Yeah.
28th.
Yeah,
Right,
that's a beautiful property.
Yeah. And that, yeah.
There it is.
There's Mill Pond.
right there.
And are we,
It's that,
so you're talking about a trail network on these parcels that would
That,
eventually connect to something?
well, there are all those roads that circumvent River Ridge, the subdivision there.
yeah.
And they own all that land. They own all that land from River Ridge down to the Marston's Mills River and there, and it's kind of common area, and there's lots of trails that everybody uses. You can actually, there's a little bridge, you can walk over the river and then come up on,
Look at that.
Yeah.
Well, this would be, I think, very interesting, because you eventually can connect to the West Barnstable Conservation Area through the, on the street a little
Yes,
bit
yes,
here
you
and there.
can.
So which parcel is it that we're looking at?
Oh, down at Mill
I
Pond,
think
right?
we're looking,
Right, yeah, there you
On
go.
the edge of the pond.
there's
Yeah,
one.
That
I
one?
think they own that.
They own that one.
Yeah, that one they own.
Yeah.
Yeah, but,
Is this
Yeah.
the parcel we're talking
Yeah,
about?
I think that's it.
3640.
They did some
Road.
demolition, they took some old houses down,
okay,
cleaned up a
yeah,
lot of
because it
trash.
was an inn and everything.
Right.
So to connect this parcel to this parcel, you need a bridge over here somewhere. Because this looks like private land right here.
I think there's a tiny little piece of land owned by BLT, I
Oh,
think,
I see it.
Mill Pond Overlook, is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right
yeah,
there.
this
I
is
don't know whether that's
BLT.
contiguous or not.
They're also
Can you
thinking
go
of
along the
decommissioning that pond.
This is-
Okay.
So here's a recreation parcel, I guess that's where the
That
area
badly needs to be dredged.
come up.
Yeah, well, they're talking about eliminating it.
Right.
Where
They-
it says
where
Mill
the
Pond
culvert,
Overlook.
the
Yeah.
You wanna-
fish
you
line
know,
opened it, just opened it.
Looks like you can walk around the pond on.
On this side. But this
What
is a
about the
river.
other
What
side?
about-
Well,
Yeah,
that's a
right
house.
there.
Well, that's a house, but is there land that's beyond their property line there that you could walk on?
You mean
Like,
here?
yeah, like that.
Well, they probably own it in the
That
shore.
one's wet.
I don't know exactly if this is accurate. But I guess you could build a little boardwalk
Yeah, that type.
connect here to here.
Well, I think you can actually drive down Old Post Road, which is that road going to the north and the left there. And there's a water company trailhead down there, and there's a path that runs all the way down to the mill pond down there.
Okay.
That's where you
Oh,
park.
really? Wow.
So this parcel here might not be
That wouldn't,
connectable.
that wouldn't figure into it at all. no.
So that's just,
But
something to look at from the other side.
if you drive down to the Old Post Road where the water company property starts, there's a couple of gates, and then you can, actually, you can walk right down to the mill pond there.
Yeah, I know that they had talked about putting in a trail that would go from the Mill Pond oval down towards the fish ladder area,
So over here.
go in that direction, yeah.
So I think there is something and you haven't really,
Yeah, there's a small trail in there.
okay. Right. Anything else, Barley?
Let's see, project updates, Smith Creek Conservation Restriction, CPC application was approved, at the town council public hearing, and the, Katuitt High Ground CR has been scheduled for its first read on, the May 1st, town council meeting. CRs for the Harju and Prince Ave properties have been requested to be placed on the upcoming town council agenda for approval.
On which time, or
It's been going on for
Everybody's
5
thumbs
years.
we don't have a schedule for that? Okay, it's in the works.
How much were they asking for that parcel?
Oh, okay,
600,000?
yeah, okay, so they're asking the CPC for 600,000, and then they're getting a grant, so the total cost of the land is 1,200,000.
How many acres is it?
13.43.
13, yeah.
So, interesting,
Right.
total value.
That's important for the herring run there. That land is critical for that herring run,
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah.
which I think was very strong this year
There's
also.
like a pair of swans or something on that.
On the pond,
Oh,
yeah,
there's
there's
always been
always, yeah.
swan there.
Yeah.
Anything?
Great ducks, too.
Okay. So Counselor Clark is not here today. We did chat briefly and he's very interested in us making progress on open space plan, so I hope we help tonight. No public comment. I guess we can have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, over there. All in favor?
All right.
Has David been